Hello and welcome back to Go ESG ASEAN 2021, organized by UN Global Compact Network Malaysia and Brunei. And of course, this event is part of the month-long SDG Ambition Month 2021. Thank you for still being online. Thank you for joining us. And we hope you've had a good lunch, if you're having your lunch just now. And of course, earlier today, we already had a couple of panel discussions where the panelists discussed on the changing landscape for sustainable trade as we are heading towards ASEAN 2030. And the second panel discussion discussed on creating a cleaner, greener, and climate-friendly ASEAN. And of course, our two keynote speakers also point out very important factors. One of them is how we can turn troubles to resources, and another was how we must demand for good governance. So those are some of the interesting factors and points which the speakers pointed out in earlier session today. Right, coming up next is panel discussion number 3, the third discussion, where the panelists will talk on the leadership in action, nurturing sustainable organizations in a developing economy context. The panelists for this session are Ms. Elim Sritaba, Chief Sustainability Officer of Asia Pulp and Paper, Mr. Andrew Buay, Vice President, Group Sustainability of Singtel, Datuk Fazlur Rahman bin Zainuddin, Chief Strategy and Ventures Officer at Tenaga Nasional Berhad, TNB, Dr. Kirana Limpaphayom, Chief Executive Officer of Banpu Power Public Company Limited. Now, moderator for this session, well, he is the Asia Pacific Head of Strategic Relations and Initiatives at Bloomberg LP, the world's most trusted source for real-time and historical financial data, news, research, and analytics. Based in Singapore, he works with senior stakeholders from government, regulators, capital markets, corporates, and foundations in identifying and executing joint strategic initiatives to effect positive change by enhancing market transparency, building local communities, and helping advance capital market development in Asia, a region that is shaping global markets. He also works closely with Bloomberg Foundation by bringing Mike Bloomberg initiatives around climate, health, and cities and governance into Asia Pacific. He has held various senior leadership roles with Bloomberg in Asia since joining the company in 1997. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to pass the floor over to the moderator of the session, Head of Government and Regulatory Affairs and Strategic Relations at Bloomberg LP Asia Pacific, Moderator Mr. Nitin Jaiswal. Over to you, Mr. Nitin.
A very good afternoon to all. I hope each one of you had a good lunch break, and also some of us might have had a good afternoon nap. So it's time for us to wake up from our afternoon nap, and also more importantly for us to wake up from emerging crisis right in front of us, which is threatening our own survival, which is related to climate and environment. If we have to solve the problem related to climate and environment, each individual has to play a part. The whole initiative was led to change everything was led by a few leaders. And then we have organizations which have adopted, and they have started creating a culture where they want to become more sustainable so that they can become good corporate citizens. And they have senior leadership, as you can see in this room, who have been working very hard to create a culture which promotes sustainability and sustainable growth within their organization. But we all know when we have to change culture, it is not easy. Because as they say, the culture eats strategy for breakfast. We may have some of the best strategies in place, but if there is no culture associate where people cannot associate with the cause, any strategy will fall apart. So we will discuss with our panel what measures they are taking as the senior stakeholders in their organization to create a culture in their organization which can help them to become a good corporate citizen and also become a sustainable organization and play their part in solving the climate crisis which the world is facing. So I would like to start this panel discussion with one question to all the four panelists. And you could start by sharing your passion in the world of sustainability and a bit of background, and then we can take the conversation forward. And my question, common to all, will be that what are you doing in your organization so that you foster this whole culture of sustainability within organization where every individual feel part of it and it is not confined to leadership at the top. So Elim, let me start with you about your passion with sustainability, how it started, and what are you doing in the organization to create that culture. Then we move to Kirana, then after Fazlur, and then to Andrew. So we'll just follow that. So Elim, over to you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Nitin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, let me explain as a background why APP and my role in this company to lead the sustainability. So, starting from our vision, sustainability roadmap vision 2020, when we launched in 2012, and follow, I think we continue last year. We expand the commitment related to sustainability, and then establish the roadmap vision 2030, which is now focused on how we can responding to the low carbon transition within our operation itself. And in this sustainability roadmap vision, we focus on three pillars. The first on how we can come out with the product, low carbon product. Our goals right now, we can reduce 30% our carbon footprint. And the second pillar is a focus on the forest conservation and protection. And the third pillar is a focus on the people. So a lot of from these goals, we cascade down to our operational and included the mills operation and also forestry operation, because we know that APP from end to end, from supply chain, from coming from the forestry plantation. And how we drive this vision going up to embed it to our culture. In APP, we have already culture in the company itself and believe for the continuous improvement to achieve the goals. So when we set the vision, we include all the team and how we agree from the goals, and to socialize or embedded all the policy and procedure within the operation itself to make sure that we can achieve together with all the goals that have been set it. And I think company culture here is really important, and therefore it is really crucial that our employees fully understand the company culture. So together with HR, we have a series of capacity building, socialization, included also in certain topic. We provide capacity building to improve their capacity on how to implement the policy and commitment. And of course, sustainability is not something short term. We need to have a continuous improvement, and this is we believe that this is as a long journey to implement. But on how we embedded this from the vision, policy, and procedure, and we embedded with the KPI for each employee to ensure that we can achieve the goals. So really important to work between the division within the company itself. So I'm sustainability has a role to together with how also together with the boards in the management to set the vision and push the implementation, ensuring that all division could be involved for the implementation itself. And setting the procedure and monitoring is really important here and key to monitor the consistency of the implementation itself. I think that's the experience from our side. Thank you.
Yeah, now, I think the interesting point you talk about capacity building and a long-term sustainability of the effort is something very critical. So now let me move to Dr. Kirana about Banpu's experience and your own passion into the subject and Banpu's experience, how what you are doing in this space.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nitin, and good afternoon to all. I think let me begin a little bit by background of the group Banpu. We originally 35 years ago a coal mining company, which is one of the I don't want to say target, but one of the key focus industry that during this day of lower carbon emission, we have to transform ourselves very significantly in order to be sustainable going forward. So I think we now have already started the transformation process since 5 or 6 years ago. We now transform ourselves instead of being a coal mining company, but we become energy company. And because we believe that even during COVID-19 and going forward, people still need energy, and I think the demand for energy going forward will still be increasing. But the key question is where could we sustainably find the energy that become greener and smarter. So what we are working on at the moment, I think the company as part of the Banpu group, the whole group, we have several flagship company. Currently, I'm a CEO of one subsidiary called Banpu Power. We have some flagship coal-fired power station within our portfolio on top of the coal mining that we have had in the past 35 years. However, we have already issued a policy that we will not be investing anymore in coal-related business. So there will be no more new investment in coal mining, no more new investment in coal-fired power plant. Going forward, our business strategy is very clear, and we have already made it clear to public because we are both publicly listed in the Stock Exchange of Thailand, that we're going to focus on our strategy on greener and smarter strategy, where we are going to focus more in the cleaner mineral technology that lead to battery that lead to battery, for example, lithium. And in terms of energy generation, we're going to focus more on investment in renewable, and we're now expanding our new line of business in energy technology. So all the business that we have now will start to be depleted in the next few years, and the revenue and the EBITDA will come more from the greener business. So this is a clear strategy that we have already embarked since 5 years ago, and we will continue in the years to come. So I think in terms of what we are doing internally to ensure that we also have a supportive culture of those strategy that I just mentioned. I think we focus very much on a lot of communication externally and internally. I think externally we've been inserting those greener, smarter message in all kind of communication to investor, to our stakeholder, both in Thailand and in all countries that we are operating in. We are operating in 10 countries across Asia Pacific. Most recently, we just invested in another power plant in the US. So the message of greener, smarter, I think we constantly communicate to our stakeholder and also to our employee, our internal stakeholder as well, that they also have to have the same belief that we are transforming to be greener and smarter. So I think in order to embed those greener, smarter more into our culture, we also have a KPI, a simple KPI system, but within the CEO, within myself and all the CEO within subsidiary and also group CEO, that we have to have ESG related performance indicator. For example, the carbon footprint, and all those CEO KPI also need to be deployed to the respective management. Not only that, we have also started since 5 years ago together with business transformation, the new corporate culture called Banpu. So within the new corporate culture, we have also the what we call behavioral factors that need to be in line with the new business going forward. Those are, for example, we need to be conscious of environmental impact in whatever we do. Just for example. So I think for the transformation, I think business transformation, we are looking into new business, but we still have some legacy business that we have to honor our existing customer. But going forward, I think the new business we have to be in the area that I mentioned in greener, smarter. But I think most importantly, I think the supportive culture that I mentioned, and you also mentioned by yourself, Nitin, that is very important, and we are focused on that. I think the weight that we put in also comparable to the new business that we want to be success, and we want to make our strategy execution successful going forward. So that probably the start of the first question.
Yeah, thank you. I think what I picked up, I think the most important thing in this thing is the behavior change. I think that is going to be one of the biggest challenge. I think the behavior change between the people who are from the earlier generation and people who are new generation. Basically, there's also the cultural clash of the generations in terms of adapting to the whole concept of sustainability. So we'll come back to that if we have time on how do we actually deal with the behavioral change. That is going to be extremely important. So now let me move to Fazlur. So your take on your passion for sustainability and what your organization is doing to create the culture.
Thank you very much, Nitin. Firstly, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody wherever you are. I truly appreciate the UN Global Compact of Malaysia and Brunei of having Tenaga Nasional here, having me here. Really feel privileged to be part of this conversation. Now, to answer your two questions, firstly on what's my passion with regards to sustainability. Well, I have always been a person who had always have high for the future. Yeah, I've been in different roles within different organizations. Chief Financial Officer, now Chief Strategy and Ventures Officer in Tenaga Nasional. A lot of my role as a senior leadership within any organization is always looking ahead. Yeah, many years ahead in terms of where this business is going, and how we actually will be affected by changing external landscapes. Yeah? So that's always been a passion for me to look at how do we cope with changing external landscapes. And I think one of the big drivers of this changing external landscape is certainly climate change. It's something which is actually really significant enough. We thought that the pandemic was actually a big issue, but I think as we see, climate change is actually something which is even more of an issue. Yeah, and on a personal basis, I'm a father of 5 children, and many of them are actually very vocal, and I always have a lot of interesting conversations with them about the future. And my youngest is 19, and they really actually care about what the future landscape is going to be, and really have serious conversations with me. So to me, I can't really avoid that, and I think something that we really as management, as leaders of the organizations today, we have to take some positions and to actually bring about a better world in the future. Now, so that's on my part. I think on Tenaga, right? Maybe a little bit of a quick introduction. Tenaga Nasional is actually the national utility in Malaysia. We serve 9.5 million customers. And we are amongst the largest companies on the Malaysian Stock Exchange. We are a listed company, although we have substantial government shareholding within the organization. We do also have domestic retail investors as well as foreign investors. So quite a number of stakeholders for us to actually look after. But I think most important stakeholder for us as we go on this journey of sustainability and climate action is our employees. Yeah. We have about 35,000 employees group-wide, predominantly based in Malaysia, although we have businesses in the UK, Europe, in Turkey, in Saudi, in Pakistan, in India, etc. So we've got some business presence in other markets, but predominantly we are Malaysia-based. So to move employees, the most important thing. I think, Nitin, you talk about the culture eats strategy for breakfast. In 2016, we started our journey of our transformation, reimagining TNB, we call it, right? So initially, a lot of the emphasis of our narrative was very much on the strategy, what we would do, what businesses we'll be targeting, what the numbers that we are aiming for. But I think as we went on this journey, we realized that more importantly, that we need to actually touch the heart of the employees, 35,000 of them, right? I mean, we talk about big strategies, usually the top level leaders can resonate with that. So that's wonderful. But what about the rest of the 35,000 employees? Yeah. So as we went through this journey, we felt that we need to actually ask the question why, and really engage with our employees in terms of why we're actually going on this journey, on this pathway. And we did a big exercise of addressing our corporate identity. Yeah, that was done in 2019, 2020. Yeah, very much. We had several workshops, engagements with different levels of employees, and what we saw from that is that across the board, our 35,000 employees, or the representative of that 35,000 employees, sustainability was actually very much at the center of what we stand for. I mean, if you look at Tenaga's history since 1949, we have been providing electricity to the nation. Yeah, and essentially what we've been doing is actually brightening lives, literally even. Yeah. So just by giving power to the rural areas, to the underserved areas, and that's what actually really resonates well with our employees. Today, however, we've about 99.8% electrified the Peninsular Malaysia. So what more? What's next? And I think the question of what's next is actually very much a question of sustainability. And I think this is an important piece where our employees have actually spoken about this, and it's important to get that as a starting point in order to then have that further conversation. Now, the journey is not over. This is a long journey. Yeah, it will take time. Yeah, whilst there are some enthusiasm and some passion around sustainability, it is not. We're under no illusion. It's not an easy way. Yeah, because it means some changes in the way we do things. Yeah, changes some of the business. Yeah. Earlier, I hear from Dr. Kirana about Banpu's repositioning of its coal business. We also have a significant amount of coal assets within Tenaga Nasional, and I think these are things that will change over time, and we need to be conscious in how the employees react to that. So I think that's how we actually start our journey in sustainability. Yeah, so I hope that actually provides some food for thought for next discussions. Thank you, Nitin.
Definitely, I think for us, the key takeaway is it's a long journey. So we should not be in an illusion that whatever we do is going to produce results tomorrow, and that is something everybody within the organization has to be cognizant about. So let me move to Andrew, to your passion for sustainability and what Singtel is doing.
Thank you, Nitin, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Not from a company that's based in Malaysia. I'm right now in Sydney, but looking after the Singtel Group's sustainability function. So very briefly, the Singtel Group, it's one of the largest mobile operators in the world. I think we have now over 700 million subscribers across quite a few markets in the Asia Pacific region. And also a major ICT business for the enterprise and government services. So a bit of my journey, I've been with the company since 1990. I was a fresh grad and have been in very diverse parts of the business, led very diverse senior leadership organizations across Singapore, the Philippines, where I was the chief operating officer for operations there, and then over in Optus across IT, networks, technology, and products. So very diverse. And actually, in 2013, I felt that as a company, while we had a very strong corporate philanthropy program, CSR at that time, I felt we could leverage a lot more of the company's assets and capabilities into more strategic social impact, into looking at some of the environmental issues, human rights issues, talent and leadership development. I'm also a leadership and coach within Optus in Australia. And so in 2013, I decided to step out from my senior positions in the business to set up what at the time was the start of sustainability. And I was told that it was career suicide because there was no such function. Our HR people didn't know how to size it, and there was no job description for it. But very quickly, as I took it on, we rapidly expanded into digital inclusion, digital enablement programs for the community, the environmental and climate and packaging and circular economy came under the portfolio. We were driving diversity and inclusion for all the different segments that we felt we need to really step up on, and then other aspects of responsible business practices such as human rights and supply chain came under the portfolio. So it grew fairly rapidly. And of course, today, when we look at sustainability, our corporate strategy covers all of those areas. We look at environment, community, people, and how we operate within our whole value chain. And we do focus into areas. We were quite advanced in 2014. We started doing quite a bit of work on climate risk scenario assessments, network adaptation. We started very early as one of the first companies in the Asia Pacific to set what we call science-based carbon targets in 2017 when there was no precedent. And so there's been quite a lot of focus in terms of energy efficiencies. Our networks, as they grow, take a lot of energy consumption, and going forward, a major focus on renewable energy for the decarbonization. But we also do run a very successful regional social innovation program where we work with tech startups that are developing digital applications for social and healthcare impact in the vulnerable communities. I think culture is really important. As the previous panelists mentioned, engaging our people is very critical. We are quite fortunate as we ramped up our scope and depth of sustainability practice over the last 5 years. Is actually, CSR and sustainability is now one of the top 3 drivers of our staff engagement, a very high R² for retention, for talent attraction, as well as staff engagement. Last year, when we had a new CEO at Optus, and then this year with a new CEO at the Singtel Group, we took the opportunity to launch a new corporate purpose and to make sure that purpose is very clearly linked to the overall responsible business practices. So at Optus, we launched a purpose of to power optimism with options. Optimism for the vulnerable, optimism for our people right in the heart of the COVID pandemic, optimism for the environment. At the Singtel side, we recently launched a new corporate purpose to empower every generation. How do we make sure every generation is sustainable, is optimistic, is positive, there's well-being through talent and community programs, skills, mental health, a very broad spectrum. And we also last year introduced for all top management, which is all our vice presidents and above, ESG KPIs in our LTI, long-term incentive plans, recognizing that many of the sustainability initiatives actually take multi-years to get there. And at the same time, annual ESG KPIs. So, in our long-term incentive programs, it constitutes about 20% of our LTI weightage. And in our annual KPIs, where we have annual targets, it constitutes about 10%. So a lot of focus really on building awareness, education, collaborating with the business because of major dependencies. So I thought I'd just highlight a couple of those areas just to add to what my colleagues have shared. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I think the key takeaway for me, and I think we need to spend some time discussing as a group also, is the KPI. Because, one of the famous quotes Mike Bloomberg always tell us is what cannot be measured cannot be managed. Yeah. So because, we may actually have the culture, we may have the strategy, but if you do not have the KPI right at the last mile, not only at the top, then it's always difficult to measure how far we are actually going. So if I can quickly take 30 seconds, if each one of you can share one idea for our audience, so that when they go back, they could actually use that as input to come up with their own KPIs. Andrew, why don't I start with you then? Let me go reverse this thing. So what will be that one KPI which leaders should actually take back and start looking to implement in their organization?
Well, I think the key thing is how do you link the KPIs to the material ESG issues that our external stakeholders and diverse stakeholders feel are important. And once those set of KPIs are established, it could be environmental, in waste, in people and talent, and responsible business practices, because we do have a balanced scorecard, then making sure those KPIs are linked to publicly committed targets. They will be linked to, KPIs of all top management. We have both shared KPIs for major issues such as decarbonization, which is a very major concern, but also linking those KPIs to other business initiatives. For example, recently we've launched a whole series of sustainable financing for sustainability linked bonds and loans and financing frameworks. They use the same KPI. So I think consistency for external targets right through the organization at every layer, that is very important for that breakthrough within the organization.
Thank you. Fazlur?
I think I don't have much to add from what Andrew has mentioned. I think what's important is actually to link the KPIs to the material measures, material items within the company. However, maybe just to also add to that discussion is that we believe it's also important to have KPIs that engage people across the whole organization. It's also important to recognize that different people across the different organization have a different perspective to things, right? Different focus areas in relation to ESG matters, for example, right? People, as an example, people in operations, maybe it's all about things like the waste, schedule waste, safety, etc. Whereas people in the top leadership may be looking at the ESG scores of various rating agencies, etc. So those are some of the things. Now, so what we are doing here is actually we are translating this ESG or the sustainability emphasis across the whole organization at different levels. Yeah, at some levels it may be just saving water and waste, for example, right? So setting those kind of goals within the different levels of the organization. Yeah. So I think there's no the short answer, there's no single KPI for everybody in organization. Of course, as top leadership, we'll be looking at various ESG ratings as a main focus. But as we go down the organization, it'll be very, very different, a lot more relevant to their areas of operation.
Thank you. Dr. Kirana?
Yeah, I think that I totally agree with Fazlur, and just add a little bit to him that there is no single KPI that can capture everything. It needs to be a balanced set of KPI. I think just for example, what we've been using, we balance between the hard and soft measures. For example, we just simply measure the carbon emission of our new investment. And then every business unit leader have to commit to lower carbon emission every year as time goes by. And I think for the softer side, I think we every year we have an employee engagement survey to evaluate the effectiveness of implementation of our culture program. So both need to go together hand in hand, to make sure that we have something that measurable, but at the same time also address our employee at their heart as well.
Yeah. Elim?
Yeah. Let me explain. I can give one example. When I said our sustainability roadmap vision, one pillar is how we can protect or maintaining the around 600,000 hectares conservation, which is we already mapped before we met these goals. And of course, important like what other speakers already explained, how we cascade down to the lowest level to make sure that we can achieve the goals. So set from the vision, and we identify what kind of threat and challenges to achieve the goals, and then we embed it to each division, and we split all the KPI depend on each division role, of course, and set KPI based on their role. So for example, the goals, we want to achieve minimum 95% in the good condition, because we know a lot of threat and challenges, and also right now it's not 100% in the good condition, and social part have their own part, and then we from the issue identified, of course, we set the KPI year by year, and then we establish the monitoring and evaluation system, which is my team as well will find what kind of mechanism or system that we can do, like an internal audit, included all the several division involved to also have like a health check, a yearly basis, or through other certification. So those things we ensure that we integrate from the vision up to KPI until individual KPI. Of course, cascade to the division and going down to the individual. So this is like sustainability is not only sustainability division function who responsible for the achievement, but we have to ensure that the vision that have been set has to also have a mechanism to ensure that the implementation on the ground with link to the vision that we have set. So that's the how we work in our company. And through like what other speakers said, culture is really important, how we embed it also to keep socialize, and then like I said in the beginning, that capacity building also to help them or assist them to achieve the KPI or the goals that we already set. So yeah, I hope.
So I think the key takeaway to all the listeners is that you have to have a very clearly articulated and communicated KPIs, which everybody can easily associate with, and everybody can see how well they're actually progressing and how well they're actually contributing. In absence of that, then it ends up being just a talk and a thought, which is not going to move the needle. So I have few questions coming in. So before I take one question, so one of the things which I just wanted to, especially with Elim, Dr. Kirana, and Fazlur, because the industry in which you operate, the interesting thing is that there is a lot of pressure and negative publicity from outside in the industry you operate in. What people not understand and appreciate that you guys are in transition to a cleaner and cleaner world. Okay. Instead of focusing on that, people end up focusing on what industry you are in without appreciating the efforts you guys are putting in. So that actually has a big impact on the psychology of people who are working within the organization, where every time you see and read, you get beaten up. Okay. So how do you ring fence this external pressure which comes in, which is kind of not positive, in terms of motivating people to stay, to focus on the concept of sustainability? So Elim, let me start with you.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, it's not really easy when we start the journey. We know that in the past, APP, when we still use natural forest, we cannot dump, right? In the beginning, a lot of pulp and paper still use natural forest as their raw material. But since 2013, when APP met the commitment stop deforestation within our supply chains, that's the since 2012 when we start the Vision 2020 and followed by 2013 when we met the commitment no more natural forests within our supply chains. I can say that that's the journey was start. And that time, my role is not as a sustainability, but I already part of the team. I was the leader of the commitment implementation, especially in the forestry side, because that's the hard part. So how we of course, I think in the beginning, we have to show the commitment and consistency. What we done internally and externally. So internally, of course, we have a special task force to assist all the supplier, including all updating or improve the procedure. Also, of course, several consultants also help us. And during the transformation, a lot of internal program that we have been run, included, like you said, how we strengthen the engagement within, especially the leadership to during the transformation is a hard part, and how to change the mindset, the whole employee. And for external, of course, we also start to communicate, to show, and transparency is really important. So since the beginning, when we implement our commitment, we also established we call a stakeholder advisory forum, which is every year we invite various stakeholders to, and then in that forum we report all the progress, included challenges, and then we open for feedback for our continuous improvement. So every year we do, and then of course we show the continuous improvement. And I know that during transformation, changing all the business transformation, it's not, there is no 100% perfect, but some people still see the weakness, right? So for me, it's okay. There is a feedback. We take it as a feedback. If there is still come out showing that, oh, this is not enough, this is not. But also sometimes we have to also show, and then through the internal communication, we also have a team to manage the internal communication to show our employees that this is the company effort to fix or transform the business to more greener, to more sustainable, how we care. So also include them by setting the KPI, so they be part of the transformation and the commitment for the company. So I think that's really important, internalized, and also to show external, to more transparent. So every year we revisit our website to ensure that we have communicate well. Included, we also put specific sustainability dashboard in our website right now, and more data or information that we show that we really implement or commit to our sustainability commitment.
Yeah. Dr. Kirana?
Yep, I think we have to do both doing and talking. I think in our company case, I think the new investment, like I mentioned before, the business strategy, the new investment will prove itself to our internal stakeholder, which means our employee and also external stakeholder like our investor. The new investment always greener, smarter. The new investment always go to clean energy. So that the doing part that I was talking about, that we show by doing that, all the new capital and everything, all the effort are putting in a cleaner energy going forward. But at the same time, we also need to do the talking as well. I think communication from our leaders are also very important. Communication to our internal stakeholder, including our employees, about the future direction of the company, how they are important to the climate change, the transition of the company, and obviously the communication to our investor and external stakeholder are done on political basis anyway. But I think both doing and talking need to be aligned and need to be hand in hand, and really show that the transformation, the transition of the company are really ongoing and not just a big talk. So that probably the case of our company.
Yeah. Fazlur?
Thanks. Just to add to the previous responses, I think for Tenaga, our experience has been really getting all our stakeholders really aligned with regards to what we need to do, where we are, and the steps that we have to take going forward. Right? Different companies have different starting points. Yeah, I think for good reason, I guess the so-called critics and all that will start to look at some of our businesses as one of those that needs to be actually looked at differently, and expect more in terms of changes happening. And I think the biggest, I guess, for us will be the investors. I think as a public listed company, the voice of investors actually quite hold a lot of influence in terms of the valuation of the company, etc., and how we allocate capital. Yeah, I think what's important here is actually really engaging with all our different stakeholders. Each stakeholders have different expectations. Yeah, investors have certain expectations. The customers have different expectations. The government has different expectations. Society at large, another set of expectations. Also our employees. Yeah, and oftentimes we find that some of these expectations are quite different actually to one another. Yeah. So the priorities are actually different, but what's important for us is actually, and this is the hardest part really, is actually engaging with all parties to ensure that we have some alignment. And I think a key part of that is actually being clear in terms of where we are today, what are the priorities, the constraints. For example, in the power sector, we always talk about the energy trilemma, right? The balance between sustainability, energy equity, and energy security. Yeah. So these are three important balances that the sector will have to be conscious about, and to ensure that we do have sustainable electricity, as well as it's secure and it's an affordable rate. Particularly, this is very important for a country that's actually still very much developing. Malaysia is actually still very much in the developing stage. To ensure that energy equity, affordability, and all that is something that's given adequate attention as well. So these are some of the things that we think that's actually very important. Now, getting the government alignment is also another important thing. So a lot of work that we've done towards actually announcing our Sustainability Pathway 2050 has been, we've been working together with the government to actually align kind of expectations on the power development plans for the next 20 years. Yeah, so for the country, and there is some strong alignment already, because we are now, I think a lot of the things that we're doing are very much aligned with what the government is actually also talking about. And I think recently there are also the pronouncements that there's a new generation power plants will not be any there will not be any new coal plants. So these are some of the things that we've worked in tandem with the various stakeholders. So to me, I think one point is actually really getting stakeholders aligned, particularly if you're a company that has a large footprint across different stakeholders.
Yeah. Thank you for this. So I have like around 5 questions, and we have like around 12 minutes. So I will, get each one, one question, so that if you can take 2 minutes to answer, we'll be able to cover most of the, questions which the audience have actually shared with us. So Andrew, why don't I stay with you and ask you, one of the questions we have: what are the challenges you face when driving sustainability culture within the organization, and how did you overcome?
Well, I think the cultural issue, it's not overnight journey. As mentioned earlier, you got to tackle it at multiple level, from staff engagement type initiatives all the way up to board level type drivers. But I think one of the biggest opportunities we have seen is how do we integrate sustainability with business outcomes? Because what we're finding is when the business can see the benefits from sustainability practices, whether in terms of the social impact or social innovation, or whether in terms of integration into products and services, or energy efficiencies and cost reduction, that's when they see the opportunity that is not mutually exclusive. So as an example, in Optus, we've launched products that are directly designed for social impact, even while it drives acquisition of mobile subscribers. We get our customers to donate unused data, for example, and we aggregate, we match that, and those unused data goes out as free plans to vulnerable youth who cannot afford mobile services. So you triangulate business outcomes with community, with customer engagement, and that's just one example where they see the benefits.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So, Dr. Kirana, let me go. This is on the power side. So it's based on what the panelists have mentioned. A sustainable organization need to implement a robust set of framework to balance stakeholders' priority and business impact. Now, this is always a challenge, because being sustainable is not a cheap; it's an expensive proposition. So you have a business to run, and sustainable, and so how do you actually balance? Are there any near-term plans to collaborate or partner with power and utility industries moving forward? So how do we solve this, the issue of two different sets?
Yeah, I think right now, even the industry itself is still in transition. As you mentioned yourself, that I think that on one hand there's a business to run, profit to make, but on the other hand, we also need to make sure that going forward everything is greener and cleaner and smarter. So my personal belief is that the world going to be more of collaborations. I think probably the entrepreneurs or the company like us, we need to join hand more together and probably there'll be more like a specialization in each of the company, that what we can do in particular part of the value chain, and then you join hand with others and try to make both the business and at the same time also um, um, environmental friendly activities together. Because when one big company, like in the past, when when the company is very big, I think and covers so many things in the whole value chain. I think what happened is that sometime along the value chain there might be some waste, there might be some redundancy. That I think right now, I think if we break those value chain down and putting in more players and uh, emphasizing more on joint venture, on collaboration, on partnership, like ecosystem concept. I think that we make the world a better place, greener world, but at the same time, everyone can still achieve their business objective. So I think going forward in power industry is going to be the same. I think all the utilities company will have to have a partnership more. I strongly believe that in some location, some large organization may still be there. But I think underneath the large organization, there will be a lot of fragments that can allow more partnership with smaller company and make the world a better place together, and everyone can have efficiency and good in what they do together, and putting in the like a different part of the jigsaw, and then it will be a much better picture in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kirana. So, Fazlur, let me come to you on this one. Because you have across the region. So usually corporate conduct their corporate initiative in silos because you have the ASEAN presence. So how can the corporate leader drive collaboration within ASEAN to achieve a collective sustainable goal?
Thank you for that question. Well, I think as Dr. Kirana was mentioning, that partnerships is very important. Now, firstly, when we launched our Sustainability Pathway 2050, we knew that this is actually going to be a very stretched kind of goal. Yeah? So hence we broke it down into two parts, one up to 2035, whereby we see that, technology that we have today is available for us to be able to achieve our 2035 kind of goals. But beyond that, from 2035 to 2050, we would expect that there's going to be a lot more new technology that needs to be further explored. Now, of course, some technologies today may seem not yet economically feasible, but we expect that over time, the feasibility, the cost, affordability, etc., becomes better. Yeah. So therefore, things like, for example, economies of scale, the advancement of technologies will actually bring some of these new green technologies to become more feasible towards the latter end of our pathway to 2050. Now, when we did this, when we studied our commitment and actually came up with our commitment, we knew that Tenaga cannot do this on its own. Yeah. As mentioned earlier, we need to also engage stakeholders, so that goes without saying. But also importantly, we will have to look at working collaboratively, partnering with various players across the value chain. So we look at from generation to the grid and wires of the business down to the retail side, and looking at collaboration across the whole value chain. Different parts of the value chain may have different requirements. For example, in the generation, probably more of the collaboration would be very much in relation of identifying new green sources of energy, such as hydrogen or actually carbon capture technology. So on that score, so we need to partner with those people who actually provide these capabilities. Similarly, as we go down to the grid, they're talking about maybe a lot more on digitalization, a lot more of data and analytics in order to actually be able to understand the penetration of renewables across our grid, and on the retail side, actually addressing the demand side of the customers. So again, these are things that we will have to work with parties across the value chain at different aspects of the business. But also we would like to work with our counterparts in ASEAN. I think ASEAN, we are in a similar starting point, I think. And I think it's quite important that countries in this particular region, that we have a common way of working. And I think as Tenaga, we work together with our counterparts in ASEAN. We've got different platforms that we actually engage every year to talk about some of the things that we can explore collaborations. And I think there are some that we can actually take on from there. And I think the narrative has been increasingly now towards sustainability. I think maybe a couple of years back, maybe the focus is different, a little bit more technology. Now, I think what we see is that many of our ASEAN counterparts are also talking about, how do we actually accelerate our sustainability efforts? I think that's actually opening doors for us to actually have further collaborations.
Yeah, thank you, Fazlur. So, Elim, so let me take this question which has come from the audience. How can we effectively communicate and nurture the importance of sustainability to all level of management and operations? This is a big challenge. So what will be your idea on that?
So like I think the challenge is, but it's really important to embed it with the culture. Luckily, at APP we already have we call a transformation culture, which is always if there is a changes or transformation, so we use this platform to communicate to from the management level up to low level in the field. So and that's also we HR has that role to have a regularly transformation talk and come out with several employees who show the commitment on how they implement on the ground. And I think it's really important from the top when have a board meeting or management meeting, keep push or remind everybody that this is the goals and how we can achieve and find creative ways because we know that environment also changes. So global also have a target and global topic. So because of our company also have us we market in the 150 countries in the world. So this kind of communication have to keep, and how we can how we can create an environment that every division has to come out with the creative thinking to find solution to find the solution when we implement on how we achieve the vision. And of course this is a journey, and but we always believe if there is a problem or issue, we also have a system that how we can function, can collaboration together to come up with the best solution for the company. And we also have to remember that how we communicate externally, so not internally, because of sometimes also we by sharing the challenges we also can have some feedback from the external stakeholder that how we can come out with the best solution, especially for APP. When we talk about the forestry operation, a lot of connection with the social environment, which is we need input or feedback from various stakeholders that we engage for now. So I think it's really important the communication and engagement internally and externally.
Yeah, thank you, Elim, for that. So I think we are like left 1 minute. So I'm just going through summary of all the conversations and points which have actually been discussed here. So if I have to summarize essentially the key elements of our discussion, one is we have to collaborate and create a culture which can be easily measured, have a proper KPI related to sustainability, and engage each level of the stakeholders. Not only it should be confined to at the top leadership, and then the communication is extremely important of that culture, both internally and externally. And the most important thing is that being a sustainable organization is not a short-term goal. It's a long-term journey, as one of you have actually mentioned. So that means it should not be dependent on one or two leaders at the top who feel passionate and it survives till the time they are there. But it has to become in the DNA of an organization which can outlive a leader when the leader moves on. Then only that journey can actually see the results and the organization in true sense become a sustainable one. It was quite fascinating to hear, 4 different perspectives on such an important topic of how leadership at the top can drive a sustainable organization. There are quite a few more things to discuss, but again, we want to keep it to our 1 hour. We are like almost on time. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all my 4 panelists and also to UNGS Malaysia for hosting and inviting us to participate in this conversation. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe and hope to see you soon when we get to travel to your respective countries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.